Robert Redford's journey as a filmmaker began with a bold move in 1980 when he directed Ordinary People, a film that wasn't just a success, but a defining moment in his career. Based on Judith Guest's 1976 novel, the movie told the story of a wealthy family struggling after the accidental death of one son and the suicide attempt of the other. The film struck a deep emotional chord, showing how grief and guilt can quietly break a family apart. Redford brought together a cast that delivered unforgettable performances. Donald Sutherland played a father trying to hold his family together, while Mary Tyler Moore, known for her warm and cheerful roles, shocked audiences with her portrayal of a cold and emotionally distant mother. Judd Hirsch played a psychiatrist, helping the surviving son, played by Timothy Hutton, who was only 20 years old at the time. Hutton's performance won him an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, making him the youngest winner in that category, a record that still stands. Critics praised Redford's direction for its emotional depth and sharp attention to detail. The film grossed $90 million on a budget of just $6.2 million, proving that audiences connected with its powerful story. At the 53rd Academy Awards in 1981, Ordinary People won 4 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Supporting Actor for Hutton. Redford won Best Director for his first film, an achievement few in Hollywood had accomplished. The movie also won 5 Golden Globes. Roger Ebert called it a devastating portrait of an American family, while Gene Siskel ranked it among the best films of the year. Redford had proven himself as more than just an actor. He had stepped behind the camera and changed the course of his career. But he wanted to do more than make great films. He wanted to change the industry itself. This vision led him to create the Sundance Film Festival. His journey into independent filmmaking began in 1981 when he founded the Sundance Institute. He wanted to give new filmmakers a place to develop their craft without the pressure of Hollywood studios. That same year, the Institute launched Sundance Labs, a program where young directors could experiment with their scripts and get guidance from experienced mentors. The festival itself had been around since 1978, originally called the Utah U.S. Film Festival, but it struggled to gain attention. In 1985, Redford took charge, rebranding it as the Sundance Film Festival and moving it to Park City, Utah. That decision changed everything. Sundance became a platform for independent films that might never have found an audience otherwise. It didn't take long for the festival to make an impact. In 1989, Sex, Lies, and Videotape by Steven Soderbergh won the festival's top prize and later became a critical and commercial hit. It proved that independent films could succeed outside the Hollywood system. In 1992, Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs premiered at Sundance, launching his career. In 1994, Kevin Smith's Clerks became another breakout success. By the late 1990s, Sundance was more than just a festival. It had become the center of independent cinema in America. Today, it is the largest independent film festival in the U.S., screening hundreds of films every year and drawing thousands of attendees from around the world. Redford's goal was always bigger than just showcasing films. He wanted to change how the industry viewed independent filmmakers. Through the Sundance Institute, he created programs that offered workshops, grants, and mentorship, ensuring that new voices could continue to shape the future of film. Beyond cinema, Redford had another passion: nature. In 1969, he bought land in Utah's Provo Canyon with a vision that blended art, conservation, and recreation. He named it Sundance, after his famous character in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Developers saw the land as a business opportunity, but Redford had no interest in turning it into a commercial resort. Instead, he focused on sustainability and preserving the landscape. Robert Redford's life has been shaped by love, loss, and an unstoppable drive to create. His first marriage to Lola Van Wagenen started like something out of a movie. In 1958, at just 21 years old, he eloped to Las Vegas with Lola, a young historian who had dropped out of college to be with him. They had barely $300 between them and had to borrow a car for their wedding trip. But none of that mattered. They believed in each other and in the future they were building. That future took a devastating turn in 1959 when their first child, Scott Anthony Redford, was born in September. Just 2 months later, he died from sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS. The condition was barely understood at the time, and Redford blamed himself for years. He had kissed his son goodnight, only to find him lifeless in his crib the next morning. That moment stayed with him forever. He later called it a scar that never fully healed. Scott was buried near their home in Provo, Utah, a heartbreaking reminder of what they had lost. Even as they tried to move forward, loss remained a painful part of Redford's life. He and Lola had 3 more children, but in 2020, another tragedy struck. Their son Jamie Redford, born in May 1962, had battled serious health issues for decades due to primary sclerosing cholangitis, a rare autoimmune disease affecting the liver. In 1993, he underwent 2 liver transplants, but his health remained fragile. Despite this, he built a meaningful life as a filmmaker and activist, co-founding the Redford Center with his father to fight climate change through storytelling. In October 2020, he passed away at 58 from bile duct cancer. It was another crushing loss for Redford, who had already lost twin siblings shortly after birth. Through all of this, Redford turned his pain into some of the most powerful performances of his career. In 1984, he starred in The Natural, playing Roy Hobbs, a baseball player whose career is shattered by tragedy before making a legendary comeback. The film earned 4 Oscar nominations and became an instant classic. Redford's ability to bring both strength and vulnerability to the role made it unforgettable. Just a year later, Out of Africa took his career to another level, starring. Opposite Meryl Streep, he played Dennis Finch Hatton, a free-spirited hunter in a sweeping love story based on Karen Blixen's memoir. Released in 1985, the film won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. The chemistry between Redford and Streep was electric, and his portrayal of a man torn between love and independence added depth to a story filled with beauty and heartbreak. Decades later, at 77 years old, Redford proved he could still carry a film almost entirely on his own. In 2013, All Is Lost was released, a survival drama where he played a sailor stranded at sea. The film had almost no dialogue, relying entirely on his performance to tell the story. He showed fear, determination, and exhaustion, with nothing but his expressions and body language. Critics called it one of the greatest performances of his career, proving that even in his late 70s, he could command the screen like few others. Then came a move no one expected. In 2014, Redford joined the Marvel Cinematic Universe, playing Alexander Pierce in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. For an actor known for playing heroes, his role as a high-ranking SHIELD official secretly working for Hydra was a shocking twist. His calm but ruthless performance made him a chilling villain, adding depth to the film's themes of power and corruption. He later returned for a brief but memorable cameo in Avengers Endgame in 2019, marking one of his final on-screen appearances. By 2018, after more than 6 decades in film, Redford decided it was time to step away from acting. His final starring role came in The Old Man and the Gun, where he played Forrest Tucker, a real-life career criminal who robbed banks and escaped prison multiple times. Even at 81, he brought charm and energy to the character, making Tucker's story feel more like an adventure than a crime spree. Not long after the film's release, Redford confirmed that this would be his last role, officially announcing his retirement. But let's rewind a bit, because not every chapter of Redford's career was smooth sailing. Did you know he initially didn't want to star in The Way We Were? When he first read the script, he felt the story focused too much on Barbra Streisand's character, Katie Morosky, leaving his own character, Hubble Gardner, feeling shallow. He told director Sidney Pollack, "The role has no depth. Who is this guy? What does he want?" He wasn't interested in playing a one-dimensional love interest, especially in a film that seemed built around Streisand. Pollack didn't give up. He brought in writers David Raphael and Alvin Sargent to expand Hubble's character, adding complexity and purpose. Even then, Redford had concerns. He worried about Streisand's strong personality on set, thinking she might dominate the production and overshadow his performance. At one point, he asked Pollack, "She's not going to sing in the middle of the movie, is she?" He wanted to make sure the film stayed focused on the drama rather than becoming a showcase for Streisand's music. Streisand, determined to have Redford as her co-star, kept pushing. At one point, she was in Africa filming Up the Sandbox when she received a telegram with just 2 words: Barbara Redford. That was Pollack's way of telling her that Redford had finally agreed to do the film. Filming started in 1972, but the tension didn't go away. Redford remained distant from Streisand, making it difficult for her to connect with him emotionally. She later admitted that he was hard to get close to, though he remained professional. that distance may have actually helped their performances. Their characters were deeply in love but constantly struggling with their differences, and that conflict felt real on screen. When The Way We Were premiered in 1973, it became a major success. The film won 2 Academy Awards, and the title song became one of Streisand's most famous recordings. But despite their on-screen chemistry, Redford never worked with Streisand again. He respected her talent, and she admired his professionalism, but their dynamic was too complicated. Robert Redford was Hollywood's golden boy, handsome, talented, and loved by everyone. But there was one co-star he couldn't stand. He called her character shallow, refused to kiss her in one scene, and made sure they never worked together again. The tension was so bad that even the director couldn't fix it. Today, we're spilling all the messy details of the feud they tried to hide from fans. Robert Redford was born Charles Robert Redford Jr. on August 18, 1936 in Santa Monica, California. His father, Charles Robert Redford Sr., worked long hours as an accountant for Standard Oil. His mother, Martha Woodruff Redford, stayed home and raised him, filling the house with stories and books. She loved films and literature, and her passion shaped Redford's creative side from an early age. His ancestry was a mix of Irish, Scottish, and English roots, tracing back to his great-great-grandfather, who left England for the U.S. in 1849. The family later moved to Van Nuys, California, where Redford spent most of his childhood. He once described it as a cultural mud sea, a place that felt dull and uninspiring. He struggled to fit in and often acted out. But outside the suburbs, he found something different. His mother's family lived in Texas, and he visited often. He spent time in open landscapes surrounded by nature. Those trips sparked a deep love for the environment, something that would stay with him for the rest of his life. His father was strict and practical, more focused on work than on bonding with his son. Redford respected him, but never felt close to him. His mother, on the other hand, was his biggest supporter. She encouraged him to explore art, story, and film. But in 1954, when Redford was 18, tragedy struck. His mother died from septicemia, a sudden and devastating illness. Her death hit him hard, leaving him lost at a time when he was already struggling. To find his path, academics had never been his strength. At Van Nuys High School, he had little interest in schoolwork. He felt out of place in the classroom. But on the field, it was a different story. He was a talented athlete, excelling in football and tennis. He even played tennis with Pancho Gonzalez, a rising star at the time. His skills in baseball earned him a scholarship to the University of Colorado Boulder after he graduated in 1954. It was a fresh start, a chance to prove himself. College life brought freedom, but instead of focusing on school or baseball, he threw himself into partying. He became known for drinking and skipping responsibilities, gaining a reputation as someone who didn't take anything seriously. The scholarship that had given him an opportunity was soon gone. After just 18 months, he was expelled. This wasn't the first time he had gotten into trouble. At 16, Redford had been arrested for petty theft after being caught with a group of kids stealing jewelry. The charges were eventually dropped, but it was a wake-up call. He had always felt restless, like he didn't belong in the life laid out for him. His rebellious nature would later influence the roles he played. Characters who pushed against the rules, who searched for something bigger. Losing his scholarship and his mother in the same period sent him into a downward spiral. With no clear future, he decided to leave. He traveled through Europe, searching for meaning. In 1956, Robert Redford set out on a journey across Europe, searching for meaning as a young artist. He had dropped out of the University of Colorado and was struggling with the loss of his mother. Paris seemed like the perfect place to reinvent himself. He lived cheaply, surviving on little more than bread and cheese while studying fine art and soaking in the bohemian culture. He spent hours sketching in cafes, walking the streets, and joining political discussions with radical student groups. It was an exciting time, but something didn't feel right. As he studied the great artists of the past, he started to doubt his own work. He realized his paintings lacked originality. No matter how much he tried, he couldn't find a unique style that set him apart. This realization weighed on him. He had come all this way to become an artist, yet deep down, he felt like he wasn't offering anything new. That doubt stayed with him as he traveled through Italy with a friend in 1957. They had no money and relied on their instincts to get by. The experience forced him to become more resourceful and gave him a new perspective on survival. When he returned to the US later that year, he enrolled at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn to study set design. It was still connected to art, but it felt more practical. Then something unexpected happened. He took an acting class, and for the first time, he felt like he had found his place. Unlike painting, where he struggled to find originality, acting came naturally. It was another form of storytelling, but this time, he wasn't searching for a unique style. He was simply bringing characters to life. In 1959, he made a bold choice. He left Pratt and joined the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York City. It was a competitive school, admitting over 300 students each year, but only about 100 made it past the first round. The training was intense, yet Redford thrived. He performed in plays like The Seagull and received praise for his depth and authenticity. Money was tight, so he took odd jobs to support himself. But nothing could pull him away from acting. He had finally found something he truly connected with. Still, his early acting career had its share of strange moments. In the late 1950s, one of his first professional jobs was on a game show. He was supposed to be paid $75, but instead of cash, he was given a fishing rod. For a struggling actor in New York, that wasn't exactly helpful. At the time, it felt like a joke. But, in an ironic twist, years later, he would direct A River Runs Through It, a film centered around fly fishing. What once seemed like a frustrating moment became a small but fitting piece of his story. Television became his first real stepping stone. In 1961, he appeared on Alfred Hitchcock Presents, a show known for its dark and suspenseful stories. Then, in 1962, he landed a role in the Twilight Zone episode Nothing in the Dark. He played Mr. Death, a calm and almost gentle figure who helps an elderly woman face her fear of dying. Director Lamont Johnson cast him because of his angelic good looks, which made the character even more unsettling. The episode became one of the most memorable in the series, and Redford's performance proved he could handle complex roles. Robert. Redford's big break came on Broadway with Barefoot in the Park, a romantic comedy by Neil Simon. The play premiered on October 23, 1963, with Redford playing Paul Bratter, a conservative young lawyer opposite Elizabeth Ashley's free-spirited Corey. Directed by Mike Nichols, the production became a huge success, running for 1,530 performances. At the time, it was the longest-running hit of Neil Simon's career and the 10th longest non-musical play in Broadway history. Redford's performance got him noticed. His charm, sharp comedic timing, and natural stage presence made it clear he was a rising star. But before Broadway, Redford had already stepped into film. In 1962, he made his debut in War Hunt, a low-budget war drama where he played Private Roy Loomis. The movie wasn't widely recognized, but it turned out to be more important than it seemed. On set, Redford met Sidney Pollack, a director who would later play a major role in his career. Pollack directed him in Jeremiah Johnson in 1972 and Out of Africa in 1985, two films that helped define Redford as one of Hollywood's biggest stars. War Hunt didn't make him famous, but it put him in the right circles and gave him his first real experience on a film set. His transition from theater to film came at the perfect time. After the success of Barefoot in the Park, Hollywood wanted him. In 1967, he reprised his role in the film Adaptation, this time starring alongside Jane Fonda. The movie was a hit, grossing $30 million worldwide on a budget of just $2 million. It proved that Redford wasn't just a stage actor, he had the same charisma on screen, and audiences loved him. Then came the role that changed his life. In 1969, he starred in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid as the sharpshooting outlaw Sundance, opposite Paul Newman's Butch Cassidy. Directed by George Roy Hill and written by William Goldman, the film redefined the Western genre by mixing humor, action, and friendship. It was released on September 24, 1969, and became the highest-grossing movie of the year, earning over $100 million. The chemistry between Redford and Newman made the film unforgettable. Their easy banter, effortless charm, and perfect comedic timing made them one of the most iconic duos in film history. Scenes like their failed attempts at speaking Spanish while escaping to Bolivia or the famous final shootout made the film legendary. It won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Original Screenplay for Goldman, but Redford almost didn't get the role. The part of Sundance was originally given to Steve McQueen, but he dropped out due to a contract dispute. Redford stepped in. and changed his career forever. The movie made him a Hollywood star and created a lifelong friendship with Newman. The two reunited in The Sting in 1973, another massive hit that won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. Even with his rising fame, Redford was selective about his roles. He turned down The Graduate in 1967, even though director Mike Nichols wanted him for the lead role of Benjamin Braddock. But Nichols had doubts. He felt Redford was too confident and self-assured to play an awkward, uncertain college graduate. When Nichols asked if Redford had ever struggled romantically or socially, Redford didn't even understand the question. That was all the proof Nichols needed. He gave the part to Dustin Hoffman instead, and the film became a classic. Redford also refused a role in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, another Mike Nichols project. Both films were critically acclaimed and won multiple Academy Awards, but Redford didn't regret his decisions. He wanted roles that challenged him, not just ones that made him famous. He didn't want to be boxed in as just another Hollywood heartthrob. Robert Redford's role in The Sting, 1973, was a turning point in his career. Directed by George Roy Hill, the film brought him back together with Paul Newman after their success. In Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, 1969. This time, Redford played Johnny Hooker, a young con artist trying to outsmart a powerful mob boss named Doyle Lonigan. Robert Shaw took on the role of Lonigan, creating a perfect balance of tension and charm. Redford's performance was sharp, confident, and full of energy. It earned him his first and only Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. The Oscar went to Jack Lemmon for Save the Tiger, 1973, but Redford's impact was undeniable. The film itself became a massive success. It made over $159 million at the box office, a huge return on its $5.5 million budget. It was the highest-grossing film of 1974, and when adjusted for inflation, remains one of the top 20 highest-grossing films of all time. At the 46th Academy Awards, The Sting won 7 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Original Screenplay. The film also helped revive ragtime music, thanks to Marvin Hamlish's adaptation of Scott Joplin's classic compositions. Redford's chemistry with Newman was another highlight, cementing them as one of the most iconic duos in cinema history. The film also made history when Julia Phillips became the first woman to win an Oscar for Best Picture. For Redford, The Sting proved he could lead a major film while bringing depth to his performance. It showed that he was more than just a Hollywood star. He was a serious actor with lasting appeal. During this period, Redford's versatility became even more clear. Between 1972 and 1976, he starred in 3 films that showcased different sides of his talent. The Way We Were, 1973, was a romantic drama that paired him with Barbra Streisand. He played Hubble Gardner, a writer whose relationship with Streisand's politically passionate Katie Morosky was doomed from the start. The film earned $50 million at the box office and was the 5th highest-grossing movie of 1973. Its final, seen outside New York's Plaza Hotel, became one of the most memorable moments in film history. Jeremiah Johnson, 1972, was completely different. Directed by Sidney Pollack, it followed the story of a lone mountain man surviving in the harsh wilderness. Redford barely spoke throughout the film, relying on expressions and body language to bring the character to life. Shot in the stunning landscapes of Utah, the film made $44.7 million and became one of the top earners of the year. It proved that Redford could carry a film on his own without relying on dialogue or fast-paced action. Then came All the President's Men, 1976, a political thriller that remains one of the most important films about journalism. Redford played Bob Woodward alongside Dustin Hoffman as Carl Bernstein, the Washington Post reporters who uncovered the Watergate scandal. The film won 4 Academy Awards and was nominated for 8. Redford produced it through his company,